Growth Educator here. I grow learning beyond limits. We are in a learning series called The Dreamer's Details. The Dreamer's Details are the details that the dreamer needs in order for them to accomplish their personal legend, for them to meet a goal or their life's work. And so we are actually taking a small break from that, and we are offering supplemental material as it relates to that particular um, learning series. I want to talk to you today about how to find clarity for dreamers. What is it that a dreamer should do in order to find clarity for themselves? Well, let me go ahead and make a suggestion to you that dreamers ought to compare and contrast themselves with other characters, with other beings in life, because it is in the comparison and the contrast between us and others that we find clarity for our dreams. Let me give you a few examples from the text The Alchemist, and I'll do so by making use of this guy right here and compare and contrast this guy right here, Santiago, who's the protagonist in the story, with Fatima, his love interest, with Melchizedek, a person who helps guide him along the way, with the Englishman. The Englishman also helps guide him along the way, with the crystal merchant, also a guide, but a lot of it he's his peer, and then with the alchemist who serves as in a mentorship kind of capacity, a guidance kind of capacity in a similar fashion as Melchizedek here. So let's start off with Santiago and Fatima. Santiago is a journeyman. I mean, he's a traveler, he's a shepherd, so he's used to being outdoors, going places, and doing things. So the difference between him and Fatima is that she actually is willing to wait for him to come back after he's found his personal legend. She's willing to wait for him to come back. And so she's more of a stable, stationary type person character, whereas Santiago is a mover and a shaker. Now, that's what makes them different, but what makes them similar is that they actually allow for love to enchant them and draw them together. And so it's in these differences and in the similarities that they have that helps Santiago have a distinction between her and him. Let's take a look at another comparison and contrast. Let's first contrast these two characters. We've got Santiago on the left, we've got Melchizedek on the right. Santiago is a young man. He is a person who's just starting off his personal journey. And he doesn't even know his personal journey until Melchizedek sort of gives him the term personal jet journey so that he's able to even understand what a personal journey is. Melchizedek is a guide for Santiago. Melchizedek is a person who is older and wiser. What Santiago over and over again is referred to as a boy. Melchizedek and Santiago are extremely different because Santiago is in need of guidance and Melchizedek is his guide in some ways. Now, how are they similar? They both actually are fulfilling their personal legend. Melchizedek is a person who fulfills his personal legend. He is helping people. He is even turning himself into inanimate objects to help people. So he is a very helpful person going after his personal legend, and Santiago is too. So you see the contrast and the comparison of these two different characters, and it is in the contrast and the comparison that his character, Santiago, starts to shine through. A third comparison and contrast and comparison that I want to take a look at is Santiago and the Englishman. Santiago here is a person who's well on his way to become one who finds his personal journey, and he is a traveler, a wanderer of sorts, but he's young, and that's once again a thing that contrasts him with the Englishman. The Englishman is a little bit older guy. He's a book guy. He's a book guy, and he also has the heart in it as well. He has the love for alchemy, and he's trying to pursue it. But he's a book guy. He's getting a lot of his knowledge and wisdom through books. Santiago is not. Santiago is getting his knowledge and wisdom through experience, through outdoors, through doing things, and the Englishman is not. That's how they're different. How are they similar? They're very similar because they both are pursuing their personal legend like no other. Like they are reckless abandon when it comes to them pursuing their own personal legend. They are going after their personal legend with sort of taking risks and with an excitement and an adventure to it. They both meet on a caravan as they're crossing through the Saharan desert. So they actually have a connection there because they are looking to fulfill big dreams in their lives. So you see, once again, the contrast, the comparison, and it shines the light on the distinction on what makes this character, Santiago, brings clarity to this character. This character is who he is in part because of his similarities and differences with other characters. Let's take a look at another one. We have the crystal merchant on the right, Santiago on the left. The most obvious difference that we have between these two characters is that Santiago is young once again, and the crystal merchant is older once again. They are also different because Santiago is actually fulfilling his dream. He's fulfilling his personal legend. He has a dream and he's going after it. Meanwhile, the crystal merchant is not. He has not, and he doesn't have any intention to. He's hanging on to his hope, his dream, that his dream and hope will sustain him for the rest of his life, but he has no intention on going and fulfilling his dream. Santiago is not like that. He has temptations to stop, both once he's encounters the crystal merchant and his time with Fatima. He thinks about stopping and not going on. But for the most part, he is onward. He is going to those pyramids. That's where he is headed. His treasure is there. The gypsy woman told him that his treasure is there, and so he's headed there. So the crystal merchant is not. The crystal merchant enjoys his love for his dream, and he enjoys not going after his dream. In this way or these ways, they are contrasting figures, but they have a lot in common too. They both actually get along because they are, in some ways, they're both peers, oddly enough. Even though the crystal merchant is older, Santiago is younger. They connect. They connect in their selling of the crystals. They connect in how they sell these crystals. They connect in how with the pride that they take in the fact that they are turning this crystal merchant's store around. So they do have some time where they share together, and they are really intensely similar in some ways, and they are intensely different in some ways. Again, Santiago is finding his clarity with each one of these interactions with these characters. He just continually finds clarity for his purpose every time he interacts with another character. Last but not least, we've got the alchemist himself contrasted and compared with Santiago. The alchemist, older, wiser guy. Santiago, once again, younger, learning, getting his feet wet, right? But Santiago doesn't believe in himself. The alchemist believes in Santiago. Santiago does not think he can turn himself into the wind. Sounds silly, I know. Santiago thought it sounded silly too. The alchemist was not thinking that that was a silly sounding thing at all. He believed in Santiago enough until finally Santiago believed in himself, in which case they are similar because Santiago at some point believes in himself and he actually does turn himself into the wind, and the alchemist is always perpetually a believer in Santiago. We've taken a look at the comparison and contrast between Santiago and Fatima, his love interest. We've contrasted and compared Santiago and Melchizedek. We've contrasted and compared Santiago and the Englishman. We've contrasted and compared Santiago and the crystal merchant. We've contrasted and we've compared Santiago and the alchemist. And so, what do we conclude? We find clarity through comparison and contrast. We find clarity for our purpose when we compare and contrast ourselves against other figures, against other people. Why? Not because we want to one up anyone, but we want to find clarity in our lives. We want to know what we know about ourselves and know what we want know about our adventure and what is ahead for us in our own lives. So I suggest to you that you take a moment to study characters in a book, learn how to determine who characters are and what they're all about, study people in life, learn how they are, learn how they operate, learn how they think, how they feel, how they act, and contrast and compare them with you. And in that simple practice alone, you will discover your clarity. Please tune in for our next lesson as we talk about the dreamer's details. The next character that we're going to take a look at is the Englishman. So please tune in for that and be on the lookout for the dreamer's details when we discuss the hands, the heart, and the work of the dreamer.